Hello and welcome to this episode of Filmi Ladies. I am Pitu, this is Beth, and today we're going to discuss the recently released movie Rocky or Rani Ki Prem Kahaani. I think this is Karan Johar's ninth directorial venture, and in its leads are Alia and Ranveer Singh, and there's a whole plethora of yesteryear's superstars in the supporting cast, which was very enjoyable. I had certain preconceived notions before going and seeing the movie, and I was very pleasantly surprised about how I felt about the movie. But Beth and I have not had a chance to talk about this movie before the podcast, so I literally have no idea what she's going to say, and she has no idea what I'm going to say. So let me start with you, Beth. On a scale of, say, my name is Khan to like whatever Karan Johar movie you like the best, which in my case would be Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum, where would you put this movie in your ranking of Karan Johar movies?
So
Also, what is your version of Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum? Like, what is your most best?
I feel like everyone on Twitter was doing this, and I was ranking their Keijo films. And I guess my best one is his short in Bombay Talkies.
Okay.
If that counts. And I feel like that should count. Because it makes masterful use of Rani Mukherjee, and it's just kind of like, limited in, like, it's contained, right? And I really like that. Anyway, so I think that would be my favorite, followed by Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, I suppose. And then for me, the bottom is probably Kank. Sorry. Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum, sorry.
All right.
But I've also largely forgotten some of the others. So, and my name is Khan, like, saw it in the theater, have largely blocked it out. So
same.
But I wonder if maybe it's more insight. It had some insights that we didn't appreciate at the time or something. I don't know. And I was actually thinking about that one the other day, like maybe I should revisit that at some point. Anyway, so I would put, it's not in his best couple for me, but it's not in his worst couple either.
Okay.
And I do feel like, from the little bit of discourse about this film that I have spied on Twitter and in passing headlines, I have not actually dug into anything yet. I am pretty sure that there's something that's going on in this film that I am just not getting for whatever reason. And I don't know if it's cultural references or, lived experiences of being Indian, no matter what part of the diaspora or the actual country you're from, or what. But I just feel like there's something in this that has passed me by. I'm kind of interested to see it again at some point, to see if I can get myself on. But like, when I see so many people I know and respect being very, very positive to downright rapturous about this film, I'm like, what am I? I feel like I'm probably missing something. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with your friends all the time or anything, but I just feel like there's something that's come up here that's really landing with people that I just either don't get or don't care about. And I don't know what it is.
Right. Interesting. For me, I was very positively surprised because going in, I was very like, It was very much an exercise of, okay, I have a Filmi podcast, so I need to watch this movie, kind of like that. But I was really shocked at how much I enjoyed it. It gave me two things I really like to do in the movies, which is I love to laugh and I love to cry, and I did both. Especially any scene involving Dharmendra. Dharmendra, I love him so much. Anytime he came on screen, I just had a big smile on my face. It was like, protect this man. So I laughed and I cried. And my litmus test for a movie is, even if I'm watching it in the theater, is, am I starting to entertain thoughts of scrolling Pinterest or Instagram or checking my email?
Right.
Which in the theater, unless it's a completely empty theater, I'm not going to do that. But the thought will cross my mind. And in this, I was completely riveted, literally from the beginning until the end. And I definitely had not gone in assuming that, because the trailer had left me very underwhelmed. I thought these songs were awful, with the exception of which I liked. But the other songs, I was like, this is the guy who gave us like Banno Ki Saheli from K3G and all of these like amazing songs. And I was like, and this is the best that his music director person could do, which I think the music is by Preetam, but I could be wrong. So I was expecting to be very underwhelmed, and it ended up really landing for me.
Good.
And I suspect, this is just a guess, but I suspect that the reason it's not landing for you and the reason it's landed for me is because K3G is my favorite Hindi
Mm.
all time. Not even my favorite current show. It is my favorite Hindi film of all time, and I have the movie entirely memorized. But to me, there are a lot of similarities between this and K3G, like
Mhm.
a lot. So it's kind of like it has a lot of the things that I like in K3G in this, including Jaya Bachchan as stern patriarch, except she's a woman, so she's the stern matriarch in this. And if you really don't like K3G, then I can see how you wouldn't like this because
Mm.
it's kind of like made of the same ingredients, I would say.
Yeah, I can see
You
that.
know? Yeah. So let's start with okay, so let me start with, are you team Rocky or are you team Rani? If you had to pick a team.
Ronnie, 8,000%. And this is one of my issues with the film as I see it now. I am open to being convinced otherwise or to changing my mind. One of my issues with this is that I think the film is suggesting that everyone has something to learn from the other people in their lives, and we should all either at least adjust or be open to adjusting, which is
Okay.
more or less a sentiment I agree with, except smart, talented liberal women being told they have to adjust to a willfully ignorant, very rich, privileged man child, no matter
Right.
how awful his family is, because his family is awful.
They're so toxic.
I do not appreciate that message
Right.
whatsoever. And I think it's flat out dangerous. Now, I'm not sure
Right.
that that's what Keijo is saying. And also, it doesn't seem that he actually wrote any of this. But, like,
Right.
you know, that's kind of one of the things I walked out of this. And, like, even at the end, she's like kind of laughing at him, like, oh, this is so cute. Willful ignorance is not cute. It is
Right.
dangerous. So, like,
Right.
I could not get on board with that. And her family, obviously not perfect. And I love
Right.
how the sort of layers of what's going on in that family, and it happened to especially Shabana Azmi's character in the past
Mm.
revealed. Um, I I loved that family. I don't I you know, if they're cardboard Bengali stereotypes, I think maybe they kind of are, but I'm okay. I'm
Yeah.
okay with that. Not Bengali, so it's not my place to say, but I'm 100% team that family. And I was very frustrated with, I felt like they were supposed to sort of give up as much as the loud, horrible, regressive family. And they're
Hmm.
not horrible because they're loud. They're just horrible.
Right. Right.
And that really frustrated me, especially in an age where India and the US are both democracies that are going over the edge of a cliff because of loud, dumb, horrible people. Like, this isn't cute,
Right.
funny to me. I don't want to see it. Um,
Right.
so that did not work for me at all. I'm sorry that answer was probably longer than
Yeah.
you were
No,
expecting,
no.
but what about you? What team were you on?
I actually didn't think that that was what was going on because
Okay.
I had my antenna up for it
Yeah.
because I was like, it's going to piss me off very much if because they were really not shown on the same plane to me. One
No.
family was clearly far more educated and cultured and sensible. Yes, they're snobs, and yes, they can be, they have their head up their
Yeah.
ass and
Oh
all of
yeah.
those things,
Yeah.
but they're decent people. And then
Yes.
here was this extremely toxic, terrible family. So I actually did have my antenna up where I'm like, are you going to equate the two? Because if you're going to do that, I'm not going to like it. And are
Mm,
you going to say that, Rocky's here and Rani's here, and for the twain to meet, she's going to have to dumb herself down? Because
right.
I'm not going to like that either. So
Right.
I actually was on edge wondering if that was going to happen because we've seen that in many movies before
Hmm.
this, and I actually don't think that that happened.
Okay.
What I saw was that the regressive family kept getting their shit flung back in their faces, like they were the ones who
Hmm.
were at risk of their son walking out of the house, a la
Hmm.
K3G, where he's like, you know what,
Hmm.
I've had enough of your toxicity.
Hmm.
It sucks to be you and I don't want to be part of you anymore, and
Hmm.
he's leaving, which is the
Hmm.
ultimate slap for
Hmm.
his family. But also you saw him learning so much from her. For example, he has this
Hmm.
whole chip on his shoulder about men shouldn't be dancers, Kathak dancers at least, or whatever. But he does take lessons
Yeah.
from his to be father in law, and he gets rid of these awful, like, toxic ideas he had about, well, this is what men do and this is what women do. And so I felt like there was quite an evolution of his character where he I mean, is he suddenly going to become like a particularly intelligent person? I don't think so. But I think his character did have emotional intelligence, if not a high IQ. And he's definitely very like willful and snobbish and things. But you see him trying, like, at first he expects people to wait on him hand and foot, or at least have servants or something. But then you have him watching a YouTube video on how to make a coffee by himself and
Yeah.
things like that. I don't really think that the movie at any point said that Rani or Rani's family needed to dumb themselves down to their level, and certainly did not need to become regressive like them. So I
Yeah.
feel like whatever criticisms the movie itself was leveling at people, they were very much only leveling it at the regressive family. Really, the only criticism that they made of the more educated and intellectual and cultured family, frankly, the decent family, was the fact that they're kind of snobs, which they
Mhm.
are,
Which they are.
and they
Yeah.
are guilty of being a little bit mean spirited
Mhm.
towards Rocky and
Mhm.
not caring whatsoever if they hurt his feelings or not. And they're being
Mhm.
very, very sort of insular and exclusionary, which is exactly what his family does also. So I
Mhm.
actually didn't feel like they were saying, you know,
But don't you think, I felt like even at the end, even if she's not kind of lessening herself, she's supposed to put up with him in a way that I was like, like here's
I
this
feel like
guy who like
she
thinks it's
likes that though.
maybe, but like he's all
Right.
like thinks it's funny that he's never looked at the Constitution. Like that's not funny. That means that you like
Yeah.
bought your way through school, which is what he says his dad did basically. And like,
Yeah.
this, and she's not just that she's educated, she is a news journalist,
Yeah.
which is a career that like disappears as soon as it's set up for her.
Right.
So maybe, but like we're supposed to think, I think, that this is a woman who cares about her profession, and her profession is actually major important current events.
Right.
And then and I'm not saying your partner has to be exactly like you or anything, but I was
Right.
like,
Right.
what it's one of those movies where you're like, well, it's good that you stopped it at the wedding, because I don't think they're headed
Right.
for a long and happy relationship, right? Like, I think that unless
Yeah.
he changes even more radically,
Yeah.
I think they're really in for trouble.
Well, I have two ways that I sort of see that. Where number one, I've seen enough really strange matches, like, like
Sure.
acquaintances and even some friends, where I've seen people kind of be like, those two
Oh,
are together?
all right.
Huh. Okay. And they seem happy. And I'm just kind
Yeah.
of like, how? But how? So, I think, like, so would they be friends? I don't think so. But would they
Right.
fall in love? I think when hormones and love enter the mix, some weird matches can happen. I think people tend to choose friends who are like them, but people sometimes will choose spouses who are
Yeah.
nothing like them.
Yeah.
So, because there's just other things that, like when I become friends with someone, I'm looking for someone who is an intellectual match and someone who has the same values as I do and someone that I can have a conversation with. I don't want to become friends with some airheaded bimbo or
Right.
himbo for that matter. But you don't have, I think a lot of people do not have that high a standard regarding whom they're attracted to. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, just based on a lot of the matches I've seen, actually, even a lot of celebrity matches that make me go, you two are together? Like, it's so weird to me. So that is one way I explain it, where it's like it's a love story. It's not,
Hmm.
they're not friends and they're not
Hmm.
coworkers or anything, but they're in love with each other. So some of that I'm like, like
So
to me, even the
PR
fact,
is not Dosti Hay. PR
no,
Mimi
not
Dosti
I don't
Hay.
think those two could be those. She's friends with Soman, but
Who
she's not
she
gonna marry him.
Yeah, and I do think so. In terms of what you're saying, the film obviously puts forward the evidence that here is someone who on paper should be a good match for her, and she's not interested
Right.
in
Which even her
whatsoever.
mom thinks, which her
Right.
mom should know that there's literally no chemistry. Like she's basically friend zoned this guy so long ago,
Yeah.
but he's still holding on to hope
Yeah.
partially because her mom has given her, blessings. So that's part of what I think. And the other part that I think, and this could just be me and my affection for Ranveer Singh coming through, I suspect that Rocky is not actually as stupid as he appears, and
Probably not.
that is, yeah, and that is a part of his image that he has constructed,
Hmm.
because he
Hmm.
is part of a very shallow, show-offy, superficial world where he surrounds himself with best buddies like his gym trainer Vicky, who has no substance whatsoever. And
Right.
I suspect he belongs to this like gym bro kind of not community, what am I saying, social circle maybe,
Yeah,
where you literally can't appear too intelligent because people are going to be like, who does he think he is? You know what I mean? It's a little reminiscent almost of Pooh from Kabhi Khushi
sure.
Kabhi Gum,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
do I think Pooh was actually that idiotic and vain and stupid and superficial? No, she was definitely very vain, I agree, and she was
Hmm.
definitely superficial, but I think she probably had a lot more depth.
Hmm.
But I think that's just part of Rocky's self-image, and he's
Yeah,
probably not the dumbass he pretends to be. He certainly demonstrates a lot of emotional intelligence, I think, and it is perhaps that which Rani sees in him. But as I said, it is possible that I'm just reading too much into it, and maybe it's just Ranveer Singh and the way he plays it that makes me think that all is not what it seems, and that he actually is deeper than he appears. It also reminded me a little bit of Legally Blonde, which is also one of my favorite
yeah,
movies.
yeah.
It's the same thing where it's like, on the surface you look at this sorority girl dressed in head to toe pink with her little chihuahua, and you're like, oh
Hmm.
god, extremely annoying. But as the, there's also that famous line, right? Like, something to the effect of, you got into Harvard Law, and she's like, what, like it's hard, you
Yeah.
know but she's like just way smarter than anyone gives her credit for, but
Hmm.
also because that's the image that she's presented.
Hmm.
So that's how I saw Rocky, as someone who enjoys dumbing himself down because that's what his peers do. And also, he's never
Yeah,
had to apply himself because why bother? Kind of
right.
like Sid from Wake Up said, like, your dad's going to buy you admission anyway, so who
Yeah.
cares? You know?
How old are they supposed to be? Do you think like 30?
I was very confused by that because Tota Roy Choudhury did not look old enough to be Alia Bhatt's dad.
No.
And so I was just kind of like, wait, he is like, wait, what? I was very confused by that. I assume that she has to be at least 30.
Yeah.
And
To be interviewing major
yeah.
politicians on television, like,
And then he would also minimum have to be 30. I mean, they're not young, although
no.
some of the casting definitely confused me a little bit. Like, Rani's parents looked too young to be Rani's parents,
Yeah,
although
they
I loved
did.
Shabana as her grandma.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just hope that Rocky, because choosing to present yourself as stupider than you really are is a pretty dangerous gamble in life, I would have to
Yeah.
say. And obviously, he's very well protected.
Yes.
But interestingly, I feel like his grandmother, if I recall, didn't seem to demand a whole lot of him, but like that's interesting too. Like you'd think that she would want him to act smarter so that he could demonstrate he can run this company that he's clearly going to inherit, even though his sister is clearly the smarter one. And I forget what movie we've seen where that, oh, Dilda Ducknado, right? Like
Oh,
the daughter should get the company,
yeah.
because she's the one who wants to and has that acumen. So it's kind of
Again,
interesting that the grandmother didn't pressure him more,
yeah.
but
I think A is good old patriarchy and
oh yeah, yeah,
misogyny, where she's like,
yeah,
well, duh, I'm not going to give the
right,
company to my
right.
granddaughter. Of course, I'm going to give it to my son. And so there's that. But then I also suspect that the way he presents himself to his friends and the world in general is very different from the way he presents himself to his grandma.
Yeah, and I think we
Because
saw that. Yeah.
right, like he hides those two things. I suspect in front of his grandma, he's not as much of a showboat and as flamboyant and as sort of flaunting his stupidity. He probably is far better behaved around her, and probably is not going to say stuff that's going to upset her as much. So he's shown as being far more eh, hypocritical
Yeah.
because of the extremely toxic dynamics and they have, in a way that Rani never has to be. Like, Rani has, she can just
Yeah.
be herself, but he has these like different personas that he's kind of created. I think weirdly, like, I was far more into his character than I was Rani's. Not
Mm,
because I Alia Bhatt was bad or because her character was not. The thing is, I know a lot of women like Rani and I
sure.
adore them and they're my friends. And I
Yeah.
would absolutely, hands down, want to be friends with the character in the movie, the
Hmm.
Rani. Lovely, wonderful person. But that's also what made her a little less interesting to me
Mm,
because she's not that unusual to me. I meet women like her all the time. And so, as lovely as she was and as wonderful as she was, and I would like to see more strong, sensible, level headed, feminist, career oriented, outspoken women like her. I was also a little bit like, yeah, okay, cool. But he just made me laugh all the time because I was like, what is with this dude?
I mean, it's a
Like, I want
much
to him.
bigger, showier role, right? Like, and
It's a more entertaining role.
and our friend and guest Sal was saying on Twitter, like, what a good job of sort of understatement. And I think I maybe am using that word, and Sal used a different word, but to kind of Alia underplays or very
Yeah.
gently plays this so that the Ranveer show can be
Yes.
on full
Yeah.
throttle, and it really is. So
Yeah.
yeah, and that was it's certainly enjoyable to watch in terms of
Right.
a performance. Like no notes from me about
Yeah.
performances on this.
It also kind of kept me interested. Like every time
Mm,
Ranveer Singh came on screen, I was smiling and laughing
yeah,
because I kind of had the same reaction that Alia did, where she was like, "Who are you? Like, what
yeah,
sort of weird,
yeah,
manic, strange person are you? Like,
yeah,
I don't know if I should give you the phone number of my therapist or if I
right.
should suggest books to you to read. Like, I don't even know, but like, I like you. And I kind of want to figure you out. Like he was very interesting to me. And I think this is the first time in a really long time that I have enjoyed Manic Ranveer because
Mm,
after the Ranveer of Ban Baja Barat, which I loved very much, and then Ladies versus Ricky Bell Ranveer, it went down a little bit because I was like, wait, I've seen this again.
mm,
Um, I mean, I've seen this already. I liked him in that too. But of course, I've gone on record as saying multiple times that my favorite Ranveers are Gully Boy and Lutera Ranveers. But this is,
right.
I think, the first time after Ban Baja Barat that I liked Manic Ranveer.
Mm.
And I'm very surprised by that because I went into the movie theater going, can I handle 2.5 hours of manic Ranveer? Is
It's a
there
lot.
enough caffeine in the world?
It's a lot.
Am I going to be very exhausted afterwards? But I wasn't. And again, I don't know how Karan Johar pulled that off because I was convinced I was going to be exhausted. What I did find very, very, very exhausting in the movie was the sets. Good Lord. I have never seen such exhausting sets in my life outside of a Bhansali movie. All the gold, all the tinsel. And I know why his house was so flashy and awful.
Yeah.
It's meant to be, but still. I was just like, my eyes were hurting. I was like, I need to put like my eye gel patches or something. It was just so loud. And I really wonder how how Rani is going to take this person day in and day out. So like you, I also worry about their
Yeah.
post-wedding bliss. I worry. I
Yeah.
hope they go into marriage counseling like ASAP.
Yeah. And like get your own house somewhere else, maybe? Like at least
Yes,
on the
for
other
sure.
side of Delhi, like get away.
I think that's the other thing it has in common with K3G is like with K3G you have this very unlikely pairing of Shah Rukh and Kajol because he's this like wealthy industrialist person's son, and then Kajol is this very loud person. What is Cage's obsession with mithai shops? Because they had the mithai shop in
Good point.
K3G, and then they have this mithai shop here, and I was like,
Yeah.
I need to like look on his Wikipedia. Was his grandfather, his great grandfather, like a mithai wala or something? Because why does everyone have a mithai shop in his movies? I don't get it. Um, but it was the same thing. Like even with K3G, I've watched that movie so many times. I always find a little surprising that okay, this like very upper crust, wealthy, sophisticated, elegant man called Shah Rukh Khan, I mean Rahul, is going to be in love with this extremely loud Kajol person. Okay, sure. Okay. Like it's a little unbelievable to me, but then
Yeah.
if they made that movie with him and Rani Mukherjee, which is Rani Mukherjee is his father's choice in
Yeah.
K3G, that movie wouldn't be worth watching though. It would just be like, okay, yeah, y'all look good together, great, wonderful. Like it would just be boring. What did you think of the music?
Meh.
So meh,
I
so
mean, it was
disappointing.
hearing all the clips of other film songs is always fun, even for me. But I don't care about any of the songs in this
I like Tum Kya Mile,
movie.
but other than that, I was like the one thing you could always tell from a Karan Johar movie was that the music was going to be top notch. And I was just kind of like, really, there is one song that has some repeat value. Everything else is terrible. I also found it funny that our last episode was the Sadhna episode, and they had her famous song Jhumka Girare sampled in the Jhumka song,
Yeah.
and they played the song from Hum Dono
Yes.
multiple times, and I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
another Sadhna one,
Yeah.
and hence Devanand also entered the conversation. Speaking of yesteryear stars, can we talk about Dharampaji and Shabana? They were so cute.
That was by far my favorite part of the film,
It
other
was so
than
lovely.
the Chatterjee's house. I want it. I want to live there. I want to hire their decorator.
It is beautiful.
It is the most beautiful. I want everything about it.
And the string lights in the
Oof.
veranda in the yard where they have their culture club, like I want to go there.
Yeah, very much. I want to go to there for the Chatterjees.
Yes.
Bengali houses in films are so gorgeous to me almost all of the time. And I'm like, I don't know what, I haven't been in enough in real life to be like, oh, this
Right.
is how this maps to to reality or not. But like
Right.
in so many films with Bengalis characters, whether it's a Bengali film or not, I'm like, yeah, I love everything about your house.
Right.
Yeah, the grandparental love story track was by far my favorite part of the film. I loved that it was there. I loved it was so beautifully executed. I loved how much emoting those two mega stars did with very few words relatively. I loved
Yes.
the vulnerability of it, the the fulfilled longing and all that kind of stuff. And I loved that it was so interesting that even when they are kind of found out, no one
Yeah.
really stops them from seeing each other particularly. And that was really, really lovely. And I do want to talk about Jaya Bachchan's character, but
Yes.
I just that it if you had told me and Dharmendra and Shabana Azmi were going to sell me on a romance, I would have been like, but I really was sold. They were lovely
They were
together.
gorgeous. Which brings me to a question. Have they ever been paired together as a romantic pairing?
I meant to look that
Like
up
with
and I
each
haven't,
other?
but yeah, nothing comes to mind to me, but
Same.
and I've seen her, I mean I feel can sell a romance with
Yes.
basically anyone, especially in his younger years. I've seen her in various more masala-y things in particular with different actors to sort of varying degrees
Yeah.
of selling it, I would say. Like, she's with Vinod Khanna in
Mm.
Akbar Anthony, for example, and I'm like, I
Hmm.
don't really buy that love story, but I mean, it's fine in the film, and like, there's so much else happening, it doesn't matter.
Right.
She's not who I would go to for that in a masala film.
Right.
Typically, I'm sure there's some exceptions of things I haven't seen yet, but yeah, I loved everything about that. I thought it was cute. I also thought it was great that they get to that fairly quickly. I thought that
Yes.
it might be very drawn out in terms of, are they ever going to meet? Are they ever going to figure out where blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I really thought one of my issues with this film is that I thought the first half was very slow and
Mm.
dragged. And I just thought when they flashed up intermission, which we didn't actually get, but they did put the text up, I was like, how am I going to make it through the rest of this film? But actually, I thought it really picked up as it went along. And usually it's the reverse, right? Like the
Right.
first half of the
Right.
film is better than the last third or so.
Yeah.
I appreciated that about it. And that was the only kind of motor driving the first part for me. But they were
Hmm.
great.
It's so funny to me because I feel like I am this like broken record that goes on and on and on about how I want to see like Shah Rukh romancing actresses his age and how I want to see like older
Yeah.
romances and stuff. And the only other older romance that comes to mind is Dharmendra had done a movie with Nafisa Ali where they played.
Oh,
Yeah, it's not like a very good movie, but like I
huh.
watched it because it has Dharam Paji in it, so of course I'm going to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And Nafis Ali is amazing. But it's so rare to see these like older love stories, and I just thought that Dharmendra and Shabana were like darling in it. And Shabana was just, I mean, it's Shabana, what more can we say? But she was
Right.
so nuanced and so beautiful. And then the scenes where she's all like lovelorn and she's talking about how her husband, Rani's grandfather, used to be, in the fact that he used to hit her and he used to, hit the dad with Chandan with like a belt. And I was
Yeah.
like, she just emoted
Mm.
so beautifully. I was like crying in that scene.
Yeah.
She's just pitch perfect, man. I mean, even in the scenes where they're just sitting at the table and she's reading the newspaper and she's talking about 42% polling, or she's drinking her tea. I'm like, I could watch you drink tea. Like, I could watch you drink tea. I could watch you recite poetry. I could watch you do anything because you are the Shabana Azmi and you are fabulous. So that was very nice.
Yeah.
And Dharmendra just makes me smile.
Oh,
um
yeah.
he's just the
Lovely.
charm and the sweetness. And I actually had this like flashing thought while I was watching. I was like, how are we collectively as a fandom going to fare when the inevitable happens and he passes?
So
It's
I
going to be hard, man.
earlier in the summer, I did go see the new Indiana Jones movie. And one of my
Mm.
thoughts during it, and this is not a spoiler, is what am I going to do when Harrison Ford dies for real? Because when they kill him off in Star Wars, I did not handle that very well. Because I was born in 1974 and grew up with Star Wars, and like you can't kill Han Solo, especially the way that they did in the films. And then I was like, oh my God, what are they going to do to Indiana Jones? And then I was like, okay, but he's a real person and he's still making movies and stuff. But when he dies, that's really going to leave a particular kind of void in, like Hollywood American masculinity or whatever. And Dharmendra obviously will be the same kind of loss and probably even greater in some ways. And I did not even grow up with him, and I'm not ready for that. So
Right. Sorry, I was not crying because of the inevitable Dharm passing. I was crying because after the movie, I went to a pizza place and I got pizza. I got a slice of pizza and I stuffed myself right before this episode started recording, and I had something stuck in my
oh
throat.
no. Oh no.
And I was like, oh no, I'm having a coughing fit. No, but I know exactly what you mean. It's like, and I don't know what it is about certain actors where it's not just like we like them for their performances, but like we adore them. And they're like a part of our growing up.
Yeah.
And what are we going to do when they're gone? It already like alarms me to see Dharam's fragility, because I follow him on Instagram and he does like a lot of videos and they're so cute and darling. And he's always like posting from his farmhouse where he's like, hi, friends. And he's so pure. Like, if you look at his comments, people will, like all the typical stupid fan comments where they're like, Dharam Paji, it's my birthday today. Please wish me happy birthday. And
Oh.
he's like, happy birthday. And someone will be like, it's my sister's exam. Can you wish her best of luck? And he's like, best of luck, Jita re puttar. And I'm like,
Oh my
you are
gosh.
so cute. So yeah, it was like when they showed that scene where he's like passed away and they had like the garland, I was like, how dare you? Do not even in a film will I tolerate this. So
I thought it was really interesting that in terms of the set, they decided to only go with relatively recent photos of him or anywhere in the film. Like, and when they show young Dharmendra in a photo, it's not
it's not
him.
him. Yeah.
And I thought that was a really interesting choice that did sort of
Why
help
did
with
they
that.
do that? I was
I don't
puzzled by
know.
it.
Well, I mean, I would rather they use different actors and get a good photo than try to Photoshop young Dharmendra and young Shabana Azmi together, because that almost always looks
Right.
janky when people do that. So, um, I thought that was fine, but I was kind of surprised that we didn't get a picture of him from any number of films, like with the garland
Yeah.
or whatever. But yeah, that was rough. That was really
Hmm.
rough, and I definitely cried.
Yeah. I was definitely crying. And my friend who pretends to be very like, she was eating her popcorn and I definitely saw her like surreptitiously wiping her cheeks a little. And I was like, you know.
I had brought a cardigan into the movie theater in case it was really, really cold, and I was like dabbing my face with my
Right.
sleeve.
Okay. Are we ready to talk about Dhanlakshmi Randhawa, aka Jaya Bachchan, who is basically playing her husband's role from K3G many, many years ago? All I wanted her to say, I swear to God, I just wished she had said Parampara, Pratishtha, Anushasan,
She did
Allah
say
Mohabbate.
is it somewhere, didn't she?
Did she say that? I don't
Somebody
know.
said is it? I can't remember who.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
yeah, once I kind of realized that she was being Amitabh, I was like, okay. I certainly didn't need any more of that.
No.
And I couldn't decide if she was acting really well or they've just captured her
Grumpy camel
her
personality.
persona. Yeah, I'm not saying she's actually really like that. I don't know, but you know, and I actually really loved the end that she does
Yes.
not pull it together enough to come to their wedding. She actually makes a choice that so many more family members should do, which is that I can't in true nature support this, so I won't come, and I won't
Mm-hmm.
come be grumpy camel on your wedding, and I won't interfere, but I also won't participate because I can't. And
Yeah.
I think, I mean, if more of us did that in life, think how much better family gatherings would be if the people
Yes.
or like how much your life would be better if you were the one who doesn't want to go to your Trumper family picnic or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Right. So I really, really admire the movie for being willing to have a family, allow some fissures in it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what happens with the grandma at the, by the end of things, but we know that she has chosen not to be there, and that is the right choice. And I think that's remarkably progressive and cool.
Yeah.
I didn't see it coming, and I was really very delighted by that. So even if I don't get anything else out of this movie, which I did, I that was a really good piece of writing, I thought.
Yeah, I was actually really shocked by it because I did not see that coming.
Yeah.
Because in every other Karan Johar film that I've seen, including K3G, there's always that big ending where everyone is like in a group hug and they're crying and they realize all their mistakes, and one assumes things are going to be great from then onwards. It was just so realistic because so many times, like with friendships, with family, with marriages, with so many things, they're just not going to get any better.
No.
And you can twist yourself like a pretzel trying to, or you can just be like, you know what, you do you, and I'm going to do me. And that's just the way it's going to be.
And they went on
Um,
without her, which
and
also
yeah,
surprised me. So like her not coming was one thing, and the rest of people being like, good, we're
yeah.
going on with what we want to do. That was so great.
Yeah, it was
So
very shocking
great.
to me. I was still waiting for like are they gonna suddenly show like at the last minute you see, a little shadow and then it's actually Dhanlakshmi. Like I was wondering if Karan Johar was gonna
Or
pull a trick
like,
like that, but he didn't.
yeah, or like she'd have her phone out and be looking at pictures from the wedding and like kind of
Yeah,
gently smiling or something. Nope.
yeah, but no, she was like, no, I can't do it.
I
Yeah,
loved that Alia got to say to her, "You are a woman who doesn't like women."
yeah.
And that too, it's
Wait,
not
did
a,
she say that or did Rocky's mom say that?
oh, maybe it was Rocky's mom.
I think Alia said that there can only be one happy woman in this house, and
That's
it's
right.
you, and it's always
Yeah.
going to be you. And I think Rocky's mom said the what you said about you are a woman who can be happy, and I just thought that was so good too.
That's a message that needs to get called out a lot more. And I fully
Hmm.
did not expect that in a Keijo film, and there it
Yeah.
was. So, I was looking up the writers, and they've done obviously various things, not all of which I would
Hmm.
call good or,
Mm.
uh, for me certainly, which is neither good nor bad. It just is. But that in particular, I was, you know,
Yeah.
Barbie clap.
I actually kind of also like that the antagonist in this movie was a woman and that
Yeah,
she was, because so often we just sort of get into this sort of like gender war where it's like all men bad, all women good,
yeah.
and, the patriarchy and all of those things. And the patriarchy is upheld by women also. It's not
Hmm.
just men. The patriarchy serves no
Hmm.
one. And women absolutely are also guilty of
Super
allowing the
guilty.
patriarchy to go ahead. So
Hmm.
I like that it called her out on that. And I like
Hmm.
that she was basically sort of the bad guy. And for
Hmm.
once, if perhaps the guy had been, um, stronger enough to like stick up to her and stand up to her rather and be like, okay, you're kind of being toxic and mean, and can we not? Like if Dharampaji was actually the person in charge in that house, that would have been a better house. But he doesn't want to do that. He just wants to be a poet. And she was just like problematic, and no one ever called her out on it.
It's interesting to wonder if he hadn't had a brain injury, question mark, I guess is what they were saying, right? He fell down the stairs, and then
Oh,
remember when after the baby is
oh,
born, right? So he
yeah.
couldn't, I think is what they're saying, like he's incapacitated basically.
Okay.
And it
And
is
then
kind
she
of
just keeps
interesting.
their son away from him. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. I
which is
actually had forgotten that bit.
another really interesting. I wonder why she didn't want the son to be around his father, if it was just because his dad was a poet and therefore, or is that revenge for this emotional affair that he had,
Mm,
a billion years ago. um
potentially, or maybe she just is so focused on one thing, which is just sort of like building her empire, and she does not, and she probably sees her husband, she probably sees her Empaji's character as namby-pamby. Like, I'm not calling him that, but she would,
Yeah.
because if he's like a poet and he doesn't really have that shrewd business sense and isn't really even interested in
No.
her ambitions,
Right.
she would probably see him as a quote unquote loser. And so she probably doesn't want her son to imbibe any of the values that their grandfather probably, like the dad probably had. So she's like, no, no, don't listen to him. He's going to tell you all sorts of like nonsense things and you come with me instead, which is also very, very terrible.
Yeah.
Um, I found it hilarious that his name was Tijori.
So
I've
funny.
literally never heard of a person whose name was Tijori. Like, what?
Did Can we shift to the other women in that family
Yes.
for a minute? Did you feel that so Rocky's mom and Rocky's sister
Mm.
were adequately sketched out? Did they feel like kind of an afterthought to you?
They
How do you feel
definitely
about
felt
their
like an
arcs?
afterthought. They
Yeah.
definitely felt like an afterthought to me. I didn't really feel like I got a very good sense of who they were.
Yeah, they were
They
not
seemed
as
like very decent
integrated.
people. Yeah, they
Sure.
seemed like very decent people, but they also felt like people who had very much been in the shadows and continued to be in the shadows for me as an audience member. I feel like I knew more about Somin,
Yeah.
who is want to be Paramore coworker. I feel like I
Yeah.
know more about him than I did about them. For instance, I didn't really get much of a sense about the sister. Like, yeah, she does what I presume was day trading or just trading. I don't know, something
Business, 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 business. I don't know.
something, but I didn't really get it. Like, does she want to be married? Does she not want to be married? Does she want to work? Does she want to go to school? I have no
We
idea
don't
what
know.
she wanted to do. And the mom, like, sneaks into the kitchen at night to eat cake, a choice I fully support. I have also many, many times snuck into the kitchen at 3 a.m. to eat a Haagen-Dazs bar from my freezer. In fact, there is one calling my name right now.
Also,
So
a note from Dilda Doknedo.
yes, I remember that. Actually, when she took that cake out, and I was like, "Oh,
Oh,
can I
yeah.
join you?
Yeah.
Could we eat it together, perhaps?" um, but then she was singing. But then she also, I felt like things were happening in a very pat way. Like, it was
Oh,
very like
yeah.
neatly
Yeah.
like, okay, so this girl, like, I don't even know, does she have an education? Did her dad buy her degree, if she even has one? And now she has a job in India, now doing what exactly? And then the mom is like a good singer, and now she's on TV at a reality show, and she's like, I was like, okay, sure, I guess. I
Yeah.
didn't get a good sense for them at all.
I thought for all the time they spent on some other things, I think those could have been fleshed out more and made more, I don't know, just more interesting and a little more
They could have cut
dimensional.
out like one or two stupid songs. Just cut out one or two stupid songs. They weren't
Yeah.
even that good. I don't have a problem with keeping long, lengthy songs as long as they're like good, but they weren't even that good. Just get rid of them and then maybe flesh these people out a little. I think they basically were just like accessories to
Yeah.
show what an iron hand this lady
Yeah.
has. She reminded me a little bit of Deena Pathak's role in Khubsurat,
Sure.
where Khubsurat, Deena Pathak is the one who's like in charge. She's boss lady, and poor Ashok Kumar has nothing to do but like garden.
Yeah.
And then no one else in the house has any say whatsoever. So, but even in Kubsurat, I remember like even the supporting characters, like who is that guy? I keep forgetting his name, Rajat something. Remember, there's that scene where
Oh,
where
yeah.
he says to Rakesh Roshan and Rekha, "Maine shadi kar li hai," and Rakesh Roshan says, "Kisse?" And then he says, "Sangeet se." Like, even those like little characters
Yeah.
are so memorable to me, and they didn't
Yeah.
have a lot of screen time. And in
No.
comparison, I feel like these people had more screen time, but they weren't fleshed out very well. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. And Ronnie's parents, what do we think of
Oh, I
those?
adored
The
them.
writing and the performances and all. Yeah.
I loved her dad.
Oh,
I
I
loved
know.
so good his performance. I mean, oh my God, I I'm so stupid. I did not see the train wreck coming because at the engagement or the sangeet or whatever, and Jaya Bachchan is like, well, I don't know how to dance, but we have this gentleman here who's such a good dancer. And I was like, yeah, he is actually. I'm so stupid. I was like, he is such a good dancer. Yeah, that's right. Show us your dance. I was so excited. But Rani says there's something wrong here, and I'm like, what? No, Rani, he's gonna show us his dance, and he's so bright-eyed and
And
bushy-tailed and such a
earnest.
so earnest and so happy to perform, and he's so thrilled, and then people start laughing. I wanted to smack every single
It
person
was
who
so
laughed at him.
awful.
I was
So
so
awful.
angry, but it was so well done. And afterwards, when he's just making himself a drink and Ranveer is so miserable and he apologizes to him, and then he sits and has this conversation where he says, I was the only boy in my class, and my dad didn't want me to study, and my mom is the one who supported me every day. His performance was so lovely. I cried in
Hmm.
that scene too. I
Hmm.
loved him. He was darling. And then when Ranveer and him danced on Dola Re Dola, I was like,
That was delightful.
it made me very happy. When we were actually leaving the theater, my friend said to me, okay, so I always love Dola Re Dola because it has Madhuri and Aishwarya in it. I had not expected to see Dola Re Dola with Ranveer Singh dancing. And I was like, and I enjoyed it.
Hmm.
What did you think
Hmm.
of the dad?
Oh, I loved him. I mean, I've seen him in a couple Bengali films and really like him, including we were talking about when we talked about Lust Stories. Sujay
Yes.
Ghosh's one of his shorts has this actor in it. I just thought that character was he's just lovely, and
Yeah.
he's clearly carrying around some pain from his childhood, but he handles it, I think, very well. Like he is
Yes.
an adult who has probably worked on himself to get
Mm-hmm.
himself into a place where he is functional and kind and loves other people and can accept love in return, and
Mm-hmm.
found a way to do in life this thing that he really loves to do, even when he was, you know, someone tried to literally beat it out of him.
Yeah.
He's a really lovely integrated adult person, and I don't feel like
Mm-hmm.
we see that in movies super often. And I want to compliment the writers for giving us all of that, despite him not having a ton of screen time. Like I think he
Right.
probably has maybe more screen time than the women in the other family, maybe, but
Mm-hmm.
not a ton. And I just really thought it was lovely, and like that actor did such good work with like knowing looks to his daughter, like when they're, at the dinner table, and he just kind of like passes a dish in a way that
Yeah.
and maybe he reminds me of people I actually know, and that's why I liked
Mm.
him or something. But that just felt like a very beautifully created and fleshed out
Yeah.
character. And I would, I'm sure I'll rewatch this film at some point, and he will be one of the highlights for me of it.
Yeah.
And his, Ronnie's mom, I thought was also very well performed, and the
Yeah.
insistence on using ridiculous English, and
Yeah.
I just thought, and her, her tone deafness at making Rocky come along bra shopping with her, I thought was actually really funny,
Yeah.
because I think we probably also know people like that who are like, you
Yes.
will be progressive in the same way and same
Yeah.
amount I am. I will teach you the way, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
irritating and often doesn't actually help. And
Yeah.
embarrassing someone is not usually a useful learning tool,
No.
right? And despite being a professor, she doesn't maybe know how to teach as well as she thinks she does. So
Yeah.
I really, that felt right to me. So
Yeah.
yeah, that she was great.
She reminded me very, very much of an auntie I have. She's a cousin of my mom's, and she is actually a professor. She was a professor at Mumbai University for many years, and she taught political science.
Mm.
And she was very, very like this. In fact, I remember when Aishwarya Rai won the Miss World pageant, and there were all these she got this like big fanfare, and she was welcomed at the airport, and all of the things that they did, because back in the day, like, the beauty pageants were such a big thing, and Sushmita Sen had won the same year. And I loved Aishwarya because, like, she was a model, and the Pepsi and ad and all of the things. Like, I was a huge Aishwarya fan before she even became an actress. And I remember there was a news, so I was watching Aishwarya's, like, welcome in India, and people were putting like a tika on her and everything, and she's doing her Miss World thing. She's wearing her crown, and then cut to there was a morcha happening in the streets in Azad Maidan, and it was like this women's organization that had organized a morcha, and they were talking about how beauty pageants were bad and how they were like spoiling the youths and all of those things. And you know who the journalist interviewed? My auntie. It was so funny. I was watching and I was like, wait, is that your cousin? I said to my mom, and my mom was like, who? And I was like, that is
Love
my
it.
cousin. And she
Love
was
it.
like wearing this like khadi sari, and she always had like really like a short pixie cut. And she's like
Mhm.
talking very like, about how beauty pageants are bad and India should stop participating in them. And I remembered her so much. And I love that character because, as you said, like sometimes those people can be very irritating
Oh yeah.
because they talk down to you.
Yeah.
They never talk with you like you're a peer. There's never a conversation. It's always a lecture. And I feel like so many academics are guilty of that. And at first I was like, oh, this woman is so pretentious and so irritating.
Yeah.
But as time passed, again, her performance was so nuanced. As time passed, I really started developing a lot of affection for her. And I loved her scene. I cringed a little at the brassiere shopping scene, but I also love the bit where she gets so frustrated with him. And she's like, yeah, it's bras. Your mom wears one, your sister wears one, Rani wears one, I wear one. We all wear them. Okay. And
Mhm.
I just kind of wanted to clap at that moment. I was like, yeah, like we all have them, like calm down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really like the way that that family was done as well. I
Yeah.
like the characters of this movie for the most part, even So Main, who really needs to start looking past Rani because it's not going to work,
Yeah.
bro.
I mean, maybe don't work for her. Just an
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. What else? Is there anything else? Oh, I did like one scene very, very much, and I found myself nodding along to it. And I,
Mm.
I often feel, living as I do on the West Coast, that I'm very much a minority when I say this. So it felt nice to have a character say something that I feel a lot. The part where he talked about how people cancel each other way too often, I liked it because I feel that way.
Oh,
I did. Now, some of the
interesting.
examples he gave were very like, I was like, you are not helping. Like, can you
Nope.
not?
Nope.
And I was just like, ugh. But part of it, I think, is just again, his stupidity. But even a broken clock is right twice a day. And the thing where he said about, like people not even wanting to, I think we're all guilty of that on whatever ends of any political spectrum that we're on. And some things absolutely should, like, I'm absolutely going to cancel you if you're like racist and xenophobic, because I don't have no time for that bullshit. And you can like go talk to someone else because I don't have time for you. But I
Mm.
do think that there's a need for a little more graciousness and niceness. And especially living as I do in California, the absolute disdain with which people speak about large parts of the country really
Mm.
cringe. And a lot of times I actually wish some of my West Coast peers would shut up, because I feel like saying, those coastal elites that people complain about, you are one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I live on the coast. I've lived in New York. I've lived here,
Yeah.
and you were not doing anyone any favors by snickering at parts of the country.
Yeah.
So, because I have lived in the Midwest as well, and I have
Yeah.
lived in the South, and some of it is very, very cringy. So I really liked what he said, because I feel like no one says that.
That part really rubbed me the wrong way. And maybe this is a subtitle question, because when famous people complain about cancel culture, I'm like, well, this is called consequences for stuff you chose
Yes,
to say in public, you
yes,
dummy. You
yes,
absolute dummy. Like, it's bad that you think it, but it's
yeah,
even worse. It's also very bad that you said it
yeah.
out loud, and almost no one ever apologizes in a way that means
No,
anything.
they always
So, and
backpedal.
it
But
wasn't
also, I'm
clear to
glad they say
me.
it. I'm glad they say it because then I can hate them.
Well, then you can learn, right?
Yeah,
And his argument that if you cancel people, you can't then learn from them. I'm like, no, that's not true whatsoever. There's this thing called reading or
right,
podcast or the
right,
entire volume of written and recorded information that people generate all the time now. Like,
right,
you can learn from a lot of people who are canceled, frankly. Now, if you're talking about
right.
everyday people who are in your life, that can be different. I'm not saying it's automatically different, but it can be. But I think I couldn't tell if he was talking about celebrities or people we actually know. And I just thought like,
I feel
no,
like he
no,
was talking
sir.
about people we know, right? Because he didn't mention any celebrities.
I
So
mean,
I
it was
just assumed he
mixed
was
in.
talking about.
Was that the same speech where he's talking about like I love Rihanna or whatever? That was a different
No,
one, wasn't it?
that was at breakfast when he
Oh,
said
that's
he
right.
doesn't like to, he doesn't know how to make tea and he doesn't drink tea. He only drinks coffee, and then they're
Right.
like, go make your own coffee. No, that was a different speech.
Because he's okay with
That
black
speech,
people.
yeah. That speech was,
It's during the apology to the dad, I
yes,
think,
to the
right?
dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So again, maybe it was what the subtitle said versus the nuances of the Hindi, but I don't think that, and in a Keijo film, you're like, oh, really? Karan Johar thinks it's problematic that we
Yeah.
cancel people. Oh, tell me more, man who poses
Right.
with Modi. Like,
Right.
I'm sure you do think that's a problem. So,
Right.
but he's ultimately, I think, responsible for what's in this film, and I did not care for that coming from him. But
Right.
um, I think that you could get across the same point about don't judge people till you know them a little better or something like that, right? Like
Right.
you could get that same, or don't discard someone instantly just because you disagree with them once or whatever. Like
Right.
that would be a fair point. But I the way
Right.
it was coming across, at least in the subtitles, I was like, it sounded like a famous person complaining about having to pay
Mm.
consequences for dumb things that they say in public and dangerous things they say in public. And I'm not interested in
Yeah.
that from
No,
them.
I don't think there was any reference to like celebs or famous people at all. I think he basically was saying like, in daily life, this is what we keep doing. We're like the rich business people, and we cancel those of you who we think are like, you're a man who does kathak, and therefore we're gonna like, we're
Right.
gonna snicker at you and laugh at you,
Yeah.
but then you're also gonna cancel us because
Yeah.
you think we don't have any culture or whatever. I think he was just basically talking about people just being judgy towards each other all the time and just being
Yeah.
like, ugh, you don't matter, which I think definitely happens a lot.
Sure. Yeah. And if they'd swapped in
Yeah.
judgy for cancel, I think that would have been stronger.
Yeah,
But,
I think
you
that
know,
was the other thing. It was like,
yeah.
no,
Yeah.
that needs to be like what you're saying is, I was like, wait, what? No. Okay, yes, maybe what? So there was a little bit of that happening, but also I was so annoyed by the fact that of all those nepo babies in the very first song.
Yeah. That was
We
not a
started
strong
with
start for
Varun.
me.
No, it was not a strong start for me at all. It's you start with that horrible heartthrob song. We had to first put up with Varun, then we had to put up with Janvi Kapoor. Okay, she looks like a blow up doll at this point. She does not even look human at this
Oh,
point.
dear.
I was like, how much silicone is in every part of it? It was horrible. And she was so jerky in her dancing. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh my
Her
God.
dancing looked off to me, which surprised me because she is quite a dancer usually, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say she's a very good dancer. I'm not that I've seen like so many Janvi Kapoor films because I don't seek them out. But what little of her dancing I've seen, she's usually not this hideous, but she was so
Yeah. She
bad.
seemed very uneasy with that choreography or something
I
to
mean, when
me.
Sara Ali Khan is doing a better job at dance than you, and Ananya
Yeah.
Pandey is doing a better, and then okay, so then there was Butter, and I was like, then there's Janvi, and I was like, oh dear, all the silicone. Then there was Sara Ali Khan, and then it was Ananya Pandey. I was like, oh my God, this is like the whole Nepo baby stable. I kept expecting Suhana Khan to show up and Khushi Kapoor to show up, and it was horrible.
I mean, that
And
too
literally,
is current one of Karen's
that
messages, I'm
is Karan
sure.
Johar.
So
And literally not one of them had even an ounce of the star power and charisma and dancing skill that Ranveer Singh
yeah.
had when he was in the same screen with them. I was like, if
Yeah.
I was one of you, I would decline to dance with Ranveer Singh because I know he's gonna make me look so bad because I'm
Yeah.
so bad.
And I was
So I was
surprised
like,
about Varun because as I'm on record as saying I enjoy him quite a bit. And I think dancing, he's very strong.
he's
Uh,
actually, yeah.
so that was interesting that didn't really work very well. He was the least annoying of them to me, but I was also
Yeah.
predisposed to think that. I
Yeah.
I I also felt like, oh no, are we going to get a parade of cameos throughout this whole film, like for
I
no reason?
wondered.
And I don't, because
Yeah.
it didn't really. Hero establishment is a time-honored tradition, obviously, and I'm sure there are many interesting PhD theses written about how various film cultures around the world, not just India, do this, and like how different ones in India do it and
Mhm.
whatever. But it was an awful lot. And it was too much for me, which is one of the reasons I just feel like there's something going on here that's just not for me. And that hero
Yeah,
entry was rough.
it was rough. Yeah. I didn't like the song. I didn't like it definitely the movie definitely started off where I was like, really, the song about being a heartthrob, and it was so loud and over the top, and I was like, okay, get ready for Manic Ranveer, 2.5 hours, let's go.
Yeah,
um but then weirdly it settled down where I was like,
it did settle down a bit.
okay, I
Yeah,
think I'm enjoying myself now. And then with the entrance of like the veterans, like the Shabana and the Dharmendras and everyone, and then I was like starting to enjoy it. And before I knew it, I was actually enjoying the movie.
good.
And I was smiling every time Ranveer Singh came on screen, and I was smiling every time Alia said something witty, and I was crying every time Dharmendra appeared, really. So I was like enjoying myself a lot. I was very surprised, and for that reason alone, this was a good movie for
Good,
me because
good,
I laughed and I cried and had a good time, and
good.
it passed my cell phone test. I never once
There
looked
you
at my
go.
cell phone.
There you
So
go.
yeah.
It did not pass my cell phone test, but I certainly was not on my phone the whole time. And mostly I was texting Amrita to be like, am I supposed to be
Right.
cringing this hard at these people? Because I have the cringe.
Right.
She's like, yeah, it's on purpose. I'm like, okay.
Right.
um, but yeah, I will watch it again. I think I will, if I watch it at home, then I can skip the songs and maybe skip some of
Yes.
Rocky just being dumb, um, and get to the parts with the parents and the grandparents and all. And that was
Right.
the parts that spoke to me more. And
Yeah.
things like I saw, acquaintances on Twitter who are also white Americans who did not grow up with this film saying like, oh, yay, there's saris in the snow. And I didn't care.
Yeah.
I just didn't care that there were saris in the snow again. And I just kept thinking like, dude here's in a coat and a sweater and long pants, and she's in
Yeah.
chiffon sari lying in the snow with bare skin. Are we really still doing this? Okay, we are.
Right.
Maybe I shouldn't say we, because maybe the fact that it doesn't speak to me means I don't get to be in the we. And that's
Right.
but I just sometimes, it's not funny, like sometimes seeing familiar beats is a great thing and a throwback and like a thing that speaks to you, and you're like, yes, this is one of the items in the formula and I love it.
Yeah.
And other times it's not, and I couldn't tell you why not. um I mean, I'm certainly on record of not being a fan of the Yashraj Chiffon Sari era. those are not
Right.
those are not movies that I like, but so maybe that's it. But there was enough in all the other people and not in the
Right.
songs that did. I mean, this is the thing about Keijo, right? Like he is always trying something,
Yeah.
and love it or hate it or feel confused or whatever. I am very confident that there was stuff in this movie to enjoy, to react to think about, to marvel at, to be bedazzled by, to
Right.
even to hate, right? And
Right.
I do appreciate that. And
Yeah.
I kept seeing people being like, Bollywood's back, baby. And I was like,
Right.
okay, okay. Like I
Right.
personally had not really felt like it had gone anywhere, but
Right.
uh, yeah. So I think kind of at a fundamental level, this was not a movie for Beth, which is fine.
Right.
But there were enough things in it that even someone who wasn't completely on board, I think, could find lots to
Yeah.
think about. And no one hearing us say this is going to, go or not go based on what we say. I'm
Right.
sure people have already seen it or have already made up their own minds, but I do look forward to now reading all the reviews and kind of hearing, like listening to Khandan's episode where I know Sal is guesting, and kind of hearing what other people have to say about it, because um yeah, it's obviously starting a lot of conversations, and I'm always for that.
Yeah. I'd intentionally stayed away from all of the reviews and everything
Yeah.
just because I just didn't want it. I did the same thing with like Barbie as well. But I was very surprised to hear that Anurag Kashyap apparently loved the movie, saw it twice,
Huh.
wrote like all these tweets about it. And
Okay.
apparently people on Twitter, I don't have Twitter, but people on Twitter said to Anurag Kashyap, like, I think some person said to him that it's like the worst Hindi movie he's seen this year or something like that. And he kind of like defended that movie to them. But he literally saw this movie twice in the theater, and I was like, okay, I wouldn't go that far. Like, I like the movie, but I wouldn't be watching it twice. But of all the people that I thought would be appreciating a Karan Johar movie to this extent, Anurag Kashyap was not someone I thought
Yeah,
would
that's
say
interesting.
this.
But when
So I
you
was
see
just kind of taken
pictures,
aback.
of him with his DVD collection, like there's a lot of stuff in there. So like I think I would I'm not particular I like some of his films very much. There's others that again are not for me, like Gangs of Wasseypur,
Right.
that is not for me. But he does seem to be a quite voracious and broad
Mm-hmm.
consumer, right, of film. So and
Right.
thinker about film. So you know, that's another thing, right? When the beats hit with things that you're familiar with, that are in your culture,
Yeah.
that are within your, and they probably stew around in his mind in a different way than they do for yours or mine or anyone else's.
Yeah.
I can see, the joy of seeing something that you think about on the big screen it's a thing. It's a real thing. It's one of the things that keeps us
Yeah.
interested in the movies. So maybe that's what's going on there. But yeah, I would share that. I didn't know that, and I am also somewhat surprised.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's it for this episode. Let us know what you guys thought. If you have seen the movie, or if you're gonna see the movie, or what you thought of Ranveer, what you thought of Rani, what you thought of Tarampaji and Shabana and all of the people in this film. We are looking forward to hearing your comments.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And we will see you next week with another episode of Filmy Ladies. Yay!